There is a question very few people have the courage to ask out loud. Why are we so obsessed with the end of the world? Why do movies, series, and games about the zombie apocalypse rake in billions of dollars every year, holding our attention in an almost hypnotic way? The brutal answer is that, deep down, the zombie is the least interesting part of the story. The real spectacle, the thing that truly fascinates us, isn't The Walking Dead. It's the exact moment the living realize that the rules are gone. The peak of any work in this genre is in the first few days. In those first 48 hours of transition where the clock stops, bills and mortgages lose their meaning, money becomes useless paper, and modern society reveals its true face. Today, we are going to analyze the dark psychology behind social collapse. We'll understand why we secretly find the apocalypse liberating, how the state fails in real time, and the absolute terror of watching your own neighbor turn into your greatest predator. Brace yourself for the end of the line of the Chapter 1. The Illusion of Safety and Suburban Terror. Terror only works when there is contrast. To truly fear the chaos, we first need to be lulled by the illusion of safety. And no movie did this better than the 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead. The movie starts masterfully, establishing a mind-numbing routine. We see the protagonist finishing a long shift at the hospital, returning to her quiet suburban neighborhood, and going to sleep next to her husband. It's the peak of the American dream, a perfect bubble of comfort and predictability. But the next morning, the rupture is abrupt. The terror doesn't come from spaceships crossing the sky or armies marching through the streets. The terror knocks on the bedroom door in the shape of a little girl, the harmless neighbor with a torn-up face. The fascination of this scene lies in watching the safest place in a person's life, their own bedroom, turn into a death trap. When the husband tries to help the child and gets his neck ripped open, the illusion of safety crumbles in seconds. We love watching this breakdown because it reminds us of an inconvenient truth. Our safe routine is always just one heartbeat away from absolute chaos. And the director's genius becomes evident in the following seconds. Anna has no time to grieve or process what is happening. Her husband bleeds to death on the bedroom rug, and in the blink of an eye, he stands back up, growling, transformed into a relentless predator. The man she loved seconds ago now wants to devour her. Primal panic takes over. She runs and locks herself in the bathroom, trying to turn the tightest room in the house into a bunker. But the wooden door soon begins to crack and give way under her husband's brutal blows. Claustrophobia swallows the viewer. There are no cops to call. There is no rescue team. The only way out is to squeeze through a tiny bathroom window. Anna throws herself through the opening and falls onto the backyard lawn. And it's in that exact moment, after the impact of the fall, that the true reality check hits. As she gets up in her pajamas, barefoot, and completely vulnerable, she realizes the horror wasn't confined to her house. The perfect, untouchable neighborhood has become a kill zone. The camera pans out, and what we see is pure barbarism. Houses are on fire. Bloodied neighbors run through backyards as they are hunted down and eaten by people they've known their whole lives. A runaway ambulance speeds down the street and violently flips over. The collapse is total, fast, and deafening. She runs desperately to her car, seeking the last piece of false security left. The sound of the power locks engaging brings a millisecond of relief, quickly interrupted by her husband's disfigured face smashing against the driver's side window. When she finally slams on the gas and flees through the ruins of that suburb, the car's windshield becomes a panoramic screen broadcasting the end of the world in real time. It's the pure adrenaline of civilizational collapse injected straight into the viewer's veins. Chapter 2. The Fantasy of the Social Reset. Here we enter the most disturbing aspect of our psychology. Why, in a very intimate and unspoken way, do we find the apocalypse liberating? Modern society is exhausting. We live buried under deadlines, taxes, aesthetic pressures, corporate hierarchies, and digital anxieties. When the zombie virus spreads, it acts as a massive reset button on humanity's server. Overnight, the entire system is deleted. A college degree is worthless. A bank account can't buy a glass of water. The CEO of a multinational corporation and the building's janitor now have the exact same market value. The only currency that matters is the ability to keep breathing. The 2009 movie Zombieland explores this catharsis brilliantly. The film gamifies the apocalypse. The initial chaos is portrayed in a comedic and incredibly liberating way. The protagonist creates his own survival rules, trashes stores for fun, and travels aimlessly. Normal laws are gone, and with them goes the weight of civil responsibility. The zombie apocalypse is our ultimate fantasy of escaping the rat race without actually having to quit our jobs. Chapter 3: State Incompetence and Mass Panic. The fantasy of freedom doesn't last long when hunger and despair enter the scene. That's the point where fascination turns into pure anxiety, the terrifying realization that no one is coming to save us. The 2013 movie World War Z delivered the definitive representation of metropolitan panic. The gridlock scene in Philadelphia is a masterpiece of tension. People are stuck in their cars, honking, annoyed about being late for work, completely ignoring the signs that the world is ending around them. It is herd mentality in its purest form. And then the avalanche of bodies begins. We watch in real time the absolute failure of institutions. The police are overrun, the military can't hold the streets, and the government goes dark. The true horror of those first few days isn't the infected running toward you. The true horror is the average citizen, the family man in the grocery store aisle or the pharmacy. When basic resources disappear, morality evaporates. People become a worse threat than the zombies, proving that civility is just a very thin layer of varnish over our most primal instincts. Chapter 4: Waking up the next day and the post-fall silence. But there is another side to this exact same coin. What if you weren't awake to see the world burn? What if you missed the climax of the fall? This is the stroke of genius in the pilot episode of The Walking Dead. We don't see the stampedes, the news broadcasts, or the military firing into crowds. We follow Rick Grimes, who falls into a coma before the outbreak and wakes up weeks later in an abandoned hospital. The terror here isn't the noise, it's the silence. It's the deafening silence of a civilization that ceased to exist while you slept. The viewer feels the dread of trying to piece together a macabre puzzle. Rick walks through dark hallways and finds only the scars of the tragedy. Flickering lights, blood on the walls, dead soldiers on the floor, and of course the iconic chained double doors with the message spray-painted in black: "Don't open, dead inside." This kind of introduction fascinates us because it plays with our fear of the unknown and of abandonment. It's the feeling of showing up to a party where everyone has already been killed, and you are the only one left to turn off the lights. Chapter 5: Isolation and the Fall of Megacities. To wrap up our analysis of the first days of the end, we need to look at the monumental scale of destruction. And no movie illustrated the weight of urban loneliness quite like I Am Legend in 2007. An important technical disclaimer here for the purists of the genre: the enemies faced by Robert Neville, those infected by the Crippen virus, are technically not classic undead zombies. They are mutated humans with an accelerated metabolism and extreme photophobia, acting much more like feral vampires. But what interests us here is not the biology of the monster, but the governmental response to the apocalypse. The flashback scenes showing the evacuation of New York are devastating. We see the desperation of families being torn apart, the chaos in the dark streets, and the military's extreme measure of bombing the Brooklyn Bridge to try and isolate the island of Manhattan. The destruction of the great monuments of our civilization delivers a massive emotional catharsis. Seeing an overgrown and empty Times Square reminds us that all our great buildings, all our technology, and all our arrogance as a species can be wiped out by a microscopic enemy. The fall of megacities is the ultimate monument to our failure. Conclusion: who would you be at the end of the world? The beginning of a zombie apocalypse draws us in because it strips away all the masks. It takes the complex rules of modern life and simplifies them into a single primal commandment: survive today. We love these stories because, from the comfort and safety of our couches, we like to imagine we'd be the heroes. We like to think we'd be the cunning survivor with a flawless plan. But the truth these movies whisper in our ears is much crueler. In real life, the vast majority of us wouldn't even make it out of the traffic jam on day one. Civilization is a fragile luxury, and maybe, just maybe, we enjoy watching the world end on screen so much because it helps us appreciate the fact that, tomorrow morning, our biggest problem will still just be traffic and the alarm clock. Now I'm turning it over to you. If the news announced a global collapse right now, what would you do in the first 48 hours? Comment your survival plan down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell before the power grid goes down forever. Until the next collapse.